As 2023 draws to a close, so many of us are eagerly anticipating the excitement of a new year and all of the rancor and vitriol and hatred and acrimony of a presidential election cycle that sits on our horizon like the dust cloud of an unstoppable invading army of barbarians. But I say, before we swing into our next revolution around the sun and all of the bitterness that it begs to bring us, let's look back at the state of our media-driven political culture in 2023 and ask, could it really get much worse?
Worse? How could they get any worse? Take a look around you, Ellen. We're at the threshold of hell.
So here are my picks for the 5 most insane media assessments of 2023. Disagree with me if you want, because after all, that's what the holidays are all about.
I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're gonna hear about it.
Number 5, who could forget when that renowned expert on all things black, lily white liberal Joy Behar, decided to do her best Joe, you ain't black Biden impression and explain why Tim Scott and Clarence Thomas aren't real black dudes.
You know, he's like Clarence Thomas, black Republican who believes in pulling yourself by your bootstraps, rather than, to me, understanding the systemic racism that African Americans face in this country and other minorities. He doesn't get it, neither does Clarence.
Right.
And that's why they're Republicans.
Yeah.
She's peach, isn't she? For number 4, let's turn to a real black dude, former CNN host Don Lemon, who waded into presidential politics and explained why recently declared presidential candidate Nikki Haley just wouldn't do.
She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got another.
I'm not saying
decade.
I agree with that.
All right, forget the flagrant sexism for just a second, because of course progressives and minority progressives can get away with it. I just want us to pause for a second and consider the chutzpah of a Joe Biden supporter suggesting that someone else is past their prime. All right, number 3. The specter of Donald J. Trump loomed large in 2023 over the very people that made Donald J. Trump a thing in the first place. Looking at you, MSNBC. Here's Rachel Maddow explaining how the guy that she regards as a bumbling buffoon could also be the smartest, shrewdest, most cunning and clever and smart and brilliant authoritarian in history.
He's basically portraying a future for America if he is put back in the White House in which we don't have another election after that.
That's ever. Right.
Because the elections are all rigged, that the democratic process can't be trusted, that Congress should just work for him, the Justice Department should just work for him. That's a strongman form of government. That's not what we have.
He'd cancel the news, like the news are done.
He wants to put MSNBC on trial for treason so that he can execute us.
I mean, I think it's fair to ask these folks to make up their minds, isn't it? He's either an idiot or a brilliant tactical tyrant. Now, you can say he's somewhere in between, but he certainly can't be both of those things. So stick with MSNBC for number 2, because Joe Scarborough knows the answer to that question.
He will get away with, he will imprison, he will execute whoever he's allowed to imprison, execute, drive from the country.
I hate to let facts get in the way of some good hysteria, but I have to ask, wasn't Trump the guy that disappointed a bunch of Republicans when he decided not to pursue prosecution of his political enemies once he had power? And wait, who was it that broke that story?
We begin with breaking news. The president-elect will not pursue any investigations into Hillary Clinton.
I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to hurt them. They're good people. I don't want to hurt them.
Right. So that's tough to top, but somehow I think the hyper-racist show called The Readout did it with this glorious moment when MSNBC contributor Jason Johnson shared his totally sane explanation for why Ron DeSantis and the state of Florida were criticizing new race-centric standards of the College Board in their AP history curriculum.
Let's be honest, they're happy to see black people be killed. And or bare minimum, I think the most charitable interpretation is black people being killed to them, to politicians like Ron DeSantis, to politicians like Cameron in Kentucky. Black people being killed is just the cost of doing American business.
I mean, that is bat guano crazy stuff right there, and you cannot tell me that 2024 is going to find a way to top it, right? Right?
You ain't seen nothing yet.